The parade will move to the right in column of threes. Form three. Right.
And they'll leave the field, and indeed the field of conflict, I suppose, to the regimental march, Killaloe, this well-known march, written actually in 1887 by an Irish composer called Robert Martin. But an interesting little fact, the first recording of it was made by Richard Dimbleby when he was a war correspondent for the BBC, somewhere in northern France in 1940, just before Dunkirk. And the BBC was doing an outside broadcast of advancing troops, and he talked of a famous Irish regiment playing as they marched past, probably the Royal Irish Fusiliers or the Enniskilling Fusiliers. It became the march of the Royal Irish Regiment when it was formed in July 1992. Brian Brew, the 8th, taking his place of honour at the front of the parade. The first Brian Brew was a gift to the regiment from a retiring Irish Rangers major in 1970. There it is, the conspicuous gallantry cross. It is a silver cross pâté, as it's known, with the St. Edward's crown in the central disc and 2 branches of laurel leaves behind the cross. The ribbon is white with a red central stripe and blue edging. And I wonder what the thoughts of Corporal Claire Withers are as she accepts this and holds it for the inspection of the departing troops. She'll be thinking, of course, of her father. It's a parallel, I suppose, with the George Cross that was given to the RUC. Now, of course, again, given collectively, it's reflected in the RUC, but there's a blue edging put on the service medal of the PSNI as it is now. That's the medal that serving officers get after 1 year of service. I don't know how this collective award will be reflected in the medal orders of the remaining General Service Battalion of the Royal Irish Regiment, but it will be reflected in some way, of course. The Queen spoke of the unique contribution to the peace and stability in Northern Ireland that the Royal Irish Regiment and its predecessor, the Ulster Defence Regiment, had created. She spoke of uncommon courage and conviction. She said, despite extreme personal intimidation, no challenge went unmet. And of course she mentioned the terrible price paid by the regiments. 274 serving and former members lost their lives, many hundreds, of course, injured, many thousands suffering lifetime psychological scarring. She spoke of the families who were unable to escape the menace that surrounded them and yet were able to give unstinting support. So So different from the normal parade ground where you hear the boots crashing against the tarmac. Here it's all been splashing through the mud. Silent march past, if you like. But it didn't seem to affect the accuracy of their footwork. Members of the Regimental Association marching off the field. Killaloo yell. Conspicuous Gallantry Cross, second only in rank to the Victoria Cross. Queen, of course, has had direct contact with this regiment before. Well, with its predecessor, the Ulster Defence Regiment, she presented them with her colours just before the change of name, in fact, back in 1991, and that was in Lisburn Barracks. Boy, did they need those Macs. Beautiful colour coordination by the authorities. The band, of course, will disappear as well, and the territorial band, existing territorial band, will replace them. Pipes and drums of the 3 battalions. Number 2 battalion there. Our farewell helicopter fly past. And that brings the formal part of today's proceedings to a close. The Queen completely unfazed by the appalling weather. I don't know if you noticed her umbrella had a very good matching trim to her outfit. Pre-planned, I'm sure. Queen chatting to the Chaplain General, Reverend David Wilkes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a very spectacular review parade that was. Please, ladies and gentlemen, as they march away, give a rousing send-off to all those officers and soldiers who paraded so magnificently today.
There'll be a great sense of relief, of course, amongst all the officers that everything went completely according to plan. No one wheeled the wrong way in the
Us all to be present on such an auspicious
march pasts,
On your behalf also, I'd like to thank all the
and
ceremonial
a fitting
staff in the headquarters of the Royal Irish Regiment.
tribute to the passing of these home service battalions.
And indeed, the whole day has fallen. There are far too many people to thank individually, but on your behalf, I would like to thank particularly for providing the security, the 1st Battalion, the Cheshire Regiment, and the police service of
There's
Northern
always a great discussion, of course, about the Queen's outfits. Buckingham Palace tell us it's plum purple. We've had guesses here of heather, ordinary purple, plum, but it is officially, according to Buckingham Palace, plum purple. So there you go.
Would you please give everybody who has worked so very hard to make today's parade such a spectacular success a huge round of applause.
Yes, a huge round of applause from the people left here, soaking, of course, those that are not undercover. A round of applause for all of those who have organised this event today. Still with me is our Home Affairs correspondent, Vincent Kearney. It had its highs and its lows because it was both poignant and a celebratory occasion, this ceremony. But that surprise and honour given by the Queen, the conspicuous gallantry cross, how will that go down, do you think?
I think none of that will go down extremely well because it's very rare. And if you remember when the RUC effectively left the stage, was replaced by the PSNI, they were awarded the George Cross. But that award was flagged up well in advance, a lot of talk about it. A lot of these soldiers today, there hadn't been any talk at all. This was a very closely guarded secret. Only senior officers in Northern Ireland knew about this award. They kept it back from the soldiers themselves. So a lot of soldiers in recent weeks have been talking about the fact that they thought their service should be marked in some way, but they believed it wasn't going to be. They certainly didn't expect anything like this. And it's the actual award itself will mean a lot to them as well, because it's the second highest military honour, second only to the Victoria Cross. There's only been a handful of them actually issued to individual soldiers. And this is the first time it's been issued to a regiment. But not only that, I understand this is the first time that any kind of honour like this has been conferred on a regiment of the British Army. So the soldiers, I think, today will go away very happy because this has come as a major surprise.
And we've been told it will be emblazoned on the regiment's colours, which is very important for them as well.
Absolutely, because emblazoned in the colours, so when the colours are laid up, so to speak, when they're put away for good, it will be emblazoned in the colours as a permanent reminder. The medal is not conferred on individual members. One medal is presented today, that's for the regiments, but I think they will probably have their own colours emblazoned. We'll probably see it emblazoned on ties, on jackets, etc. from here on in.
Okay, Vincent, thank you for that. Well, that was the end of the ceremony and the end of an era from the Balmoral Showgrounds. Back to you, Noel.
Donna and Vincent, thank you very much indeed. Still with me here is Chris Ryder, the writer and I suppose biographer of the Ulster Defence Regiment. What's your reaction to the award of the Gallantry Cross?
Well, I think that there would have been very sore feelings if the RUC, having been recognised collectively, the UDR and the RIR had been allowed to pass from the stage without a similar recognition. And I think that will come as a comfort to those who served in the regiment, those who lost loved ones while serving in the regiment, and also to the general unionist community who saw the regiment as very much a part of their defence in dark days against terrorism and political uncertainty.
And yet other regiments which have gone west, the Black Watch, perhaps in prime position, didn't get a similar honour. Will there be some feeling, some resentment of that in the army?
Perhaps slightly, but I think that most people recognise that Northern Ireland for the last 36 years, when the army have been on continuous service longer than in any other campaign that it's ever fought in its history, was a special and unique campaign, a special and unique circumstance, and therefore it's right that the special and unique awards should be given to the RUC and the UDR, who after all were the principal members of the security forces in the front line.
And what do you think will be the reaction from Republicans? Will they just let it pass? Does it matter?
No, I think that their hostility to the regiment and all that it stood for is such that it won't matter. They'll not change the view of it, and they'll just dismiss this as a bauble.
We should say, just as the royal guests were arriving, there was a small protest outside the King's Hall. Up to 50 Republicans gathered close to the front of the building. They were kept away by a cordon of police. The anti-collusion group said they were demonstrating against the UDR, which they say was never acceptable to the nationalist community. It was, they said, a dignified protest. But today we must reflect on what the Queen said. She again spoke of uncommon courage and conviction in the face of extreme personal intimidation, no challenge unmet. And she said that the gallantry had secured the respect of the nation.
I think that's right. I mean, you've only to think of Corporal Withers alone. There he was, a butcher in Crossgar, serving in a shop to the community that he served, and the gunmen came in and shot him dead in the middle of an afternoon. That was the sort of death that was meted out to these people, and that was the risks they ran. They knew when they were at their workplaces, in their homes, vulnerable areas on the border particularly, that they were at risk, and they still choose to join the regiment. They still choose to serve the community and to try and make this a better place.
And 274 lost their lives, and in every story, as you read what happened to these people, you become aware of that, what the Queen called the extreme personal intimidation and the menace that surrounded these people every day of their lives.
People must not forget how dark and difficult and menace-ridden those days were for everybody in this community, and the UDR and the RIR played their part. There were, of course, blemishes in that record. They will always remain notorious to some people, but by and large, the overwhelming number of them acted with integrity and great courage.
And that has been marked by the Queen presenting to the outgoing battalions the conspicuous Gallantry Cross. From this special programme, good afternoon.